How could you sell the condo? I promised it to my wife. Hand over the sale money right now. Devin screamed those words at me with a fury I had never seen in his eyes. Tasha wept behind him, clutching her chest as if she were having a panic attack. But I just took a deep breath and said calmly, "There's a second piece of news you need to hear." As the words left my mouth, I watched my son's face change. First confusion, then fear, then that tremor in his hands that only appears when someone feels the floor giving way beneath their feet. "But Mom," he stammered, his voice cracking, "my wife and I have nowhere to go. We can't live on the street." And right then, in that precise moment, I knew I had won, because for years I was the one who trembled. I was the one who begged. I was the one who lived in fear. But that woman doesn't exist anymore. My name is Clara Mae Johnson. I'm 65 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was invisible. Invisible to my son, invisible to my daughter-in-law, and invisible even to myself. I lived in a 2-bedroom unit that my late husband and I bought 30 years ago. It wasn't fancy. The walls had water stains in the corners. The kitchen was small and dark, but it was mine. It was the only place in the world where I still existed as something more than a shadow. My husband, Thomas, passed away 7 years ago. He went in his sleep, without pain, without a goodbye. And since that day, my life had become a silent routine. I woke up at 6 in the morning, brewed coffee in the same old percolator that made a strange, sputtering noise. I swept the floor, looked out the window. I waited. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. Devin was my only child, my only close relative. After his father died, I thought we would get closer. I thought he'd visit more often, that he'd call to check on me, that maybe, just maybe, he'd invite me out to dinner sometimes. But no. Devin had his life. He had Tasha. He had his job, his friends, his plans, and I was just a number on his to-do list, a quick phone call every 2 weeks, an obligatory visit on Christmas. Nothing more. At first, I tried not to take it personally. I told myself it was normal, that children grow up and move on, that I couldn't be selfish. But loneliness is a heavy thing. It weighs on your chest like a stone, sinking you slowly, so gradually that you don't even notice until you can't breathe anymore. Devin's visits were always the same. He'd knock, walk in without a smile, and sit on the sofa with his phone in his hand. "Hey, Mom. How you holding up?" "I'm fine, son. And you?" "Good. Busy." Then silence. That uncomfortable silence, filled only by the sounds of his cell phone notifications. I'd offer him coffee. He'd say he didn't have time. I'd ask about Tasha. He'd answer in clipped sentences. I'd try to tell him something about my day, about the neighbors, about anything. And he'd look at his watch. He always looked at his watch, as if every minute with me was a minute stolen from his real life. But I smiled. I always smiled, because he was my son, and a mother doesn't give up. A mother keeps trying, even when it hurts, even when she's invisible. Tasha was different, or at least she seemed to be at first. When Devin first brought her home, she smiled a lot. She hugged me, called me Mama Clara in a sweet voice, and brought me cheap flowers from the supermarket. And I, so alone, so starved for affection, let myself be fooled. I thought I finally had someone else in my life, the daughter I never had, someone to talk to. But the flowers wilted, and with them, Tasha's mask fell too. Little by little, I started noticing the glances, those quick looks she'd shoot around the apartment when she thought I wasn't watching. Glances that evaluated, that calculated, that measured the value of everything, the walls, the furniture, the space itself. And then I understood. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle between her and what she wanted. The insults started subtly, so subtly that at first I thought I was imagining them. One day, Tasha arrived with Devin and said, "Mama Clara, this sofa is ancient. You really ought to replace it." I told her I didn't have the money for that. She smiled and said, "Well, when this unit is ours, the first thing we'll do is renovate everything. When it's ours, as if they had already decided, as if my death were just a pending formality. Another time, they were having dinner at my place. I had cooked for hours. I'd made the smothered pork chops my son loved as a boy, but Tasha barely took a bite and said, "It's a little too salty, isn't it, Dev?" And my son, my own son, nodded without even looking at me. They left their plates almost full, and I, as always, said nothing. I just cleaned up in silence while they talked about their plans, their dreams, their future. A future where I didn't exist. But there was one moment that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the bathroom when I heard Devin and Tasha arrive. They hadn't told me they were coming. I heard their voices in the living room, and something in the tone made me freeze. It made me listen. "How much do you think this place is worth?" Tasha asked. "I don't know, maybe $280,000, Devin replied. "With that, we could put the down payment on a real house, a big one." Tasha's voice was filled with excitement. "But your mom won't sell, will she, Devin?" He laughed, a dry, chilling laugh. "Nah, but she's not going to live forever. And when she goes, this place is mine. It's all the inheritance I've got." Tasha sighed, relieved. "Thank goodness, because honestly, I don't know how much longer I can pretend to like her." I felt something shatter inside me, something that could never be repaired. I stayed in the bathroom, my hand over my mouth to keep silent. The tears fell freely, but they weren't tears of sadness. It was something deeper. It was the death of an illusion. The illusion that my son loved me, that I mattered to him even a little. When I finally came out, they were sitting on the sofa. Tasha smiled at me. "Mama Clara, what a surprise. We didn't know you were home." A lie. They knew perfectly well. They just didn't care. Devin didn't even look up. He was checking his phone. And I smiled again. I offered them coffee. They declined. They stayed for 10 more minutes and left. I sat down on that old sofa they despised so much and asked myself, when did I become this? Someone waiting for her own death just to stop being a bother? The hours passed slowly after they left. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the city noises, the passing cars, the distant voices, the wind hitting the window. And at some point between the darkness and the silence, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to keep waiting. I wasn't going to keep being invisible. I wasn't going to hand over my life to someone who was only waiting for me to die. For the first time in 7 years, I felt something close to rage. But it wasn't explosive rage. It was cold, calculated. It was the anger of someone who is finally waking up. The next morning, I woke up different. I don't know how to explain it. It was as if something inside me had hardened overnight, as if all the tears I'd shed had washed away something old and rotten, leaving space for something new, something stronger. I got up, made my coffee, but this time I didn't sit staring out the window like always. This time I took out an old notebook I had stored in a drawer and started writing. I wrote down everything I remembered, every insult, every hurtful word, every contemptuous look. I needed to see it. I needed to understand how blind I had been. And when I finished, I had filled 5 pages. 5 pages of proof that I hadn't imagined it, that I wasn't crazy, that they had genuinely reduced me to nothing. The humiliations didn't stop. They actually worsened. It was as if Devin and Tasha sensed I was changing and needed to remind me of my place. 2 weeks after the conversation I overheard, they came to visit again. This time, they brought news. "Mom," Devin said without even a greeting, "we need to talk about something important. Tasha and I are house hunting. We want to start a family, but everything is so expensive." I nodded. I said nothing. I just waited. Then Tasha spoke with that falsely sweet voice I hated so much. "Mama Clara, we know this unit is huge for just you. 2 bedrooms for 1 person. It's a waste, don't you think? You could live somewhere smaller, cozier, and maybe you could sell us this place. At a fair price, of course. A family price." A family price? The words sounded nice, but I knew what they meant. They meant they wanted me to give away my only asset, to hand over the home my husband and I had paid for with 30 years of hard work, just so they could start their lives without making sacrifices, without working hard like we did. I took a deep breath and told them, "I'm not ready to sell. This place holds too many memories for me." Devin frowned. "Mom, don't be selfish. You won't need it for much longer anyway. At your age, what's the point of clinging to material things? You should be thinking about your son, about your family." Tasha nodded, fake tears welling in her eyes. "But we were really counting on this, Mama Clara. We'd already made plans." Plans. They had made plans with my life, with my home, without even asking me. And the worst part was, they said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I owed them my existence. I stayed silent. I didn't argue. I just told them I'd think about it. And they left satisfied, certain that sooner or later I would cave, because I always caved. I always ended up giving them what they wanted. But this time, something was different. This time, as I closed the door behind them, I didn't feel guilt. I felt determination. I felt clarity, and I knew exactly what I had to do. 3 more weeks passed. 3 weeks where Devin called me every day. Not to ask how I was, not to see if I needed anything, but just to pressure me. "Mom, have you thought about what we talked about? Mom, we found a perfect house, but we need the down payment money. Mom, don't be difficult." And Tasha would send texts, long messages filled with sad face emojis. "Mama Clara, I know it's hard for you, but think about the grandkids you could have. Don't you want your future grandchildren to have a good home?" Every message was a blow. Every call was a reminder that to them, I was only a means to an end. And the rage kept growing, cold, silent, powerful. Then came the moment that changed everything for good. It was a Friday. I had gone to the bank for a simple task, updating my information, nothing major. But while I was waiting, I overheard 2 women talking. One, younger, was telling the other, "My mother-in-law finally sold her house. She bought a small condo, and with the rest, she went traveling. She says she worked for others her whole life, and now she wants to live for herself." The other woman laughed. "How brave! I wouldn't have the nerve to do that. My family would kill me." And the first one replied, "But it's her money, her life. Why should she need to ask permission?" Those words stuck with me. Why should I need to ask permission? It was my condo, my life, my decision. No one had given it to me. No one had paid a single dollar of the mortgage except my husband and me. And yet, I had spent months feeling like I didn't have the right to do what I wanted with what was mine, that somehow I owed everything to Devin just for being my son. That wasn't love. That was manipulation. And I had allowed myself to be manipulated for too long. I left the bank with a clear idea, so clear that my own boldness startled me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. It was now or never. That same afternoon, I searched online for real estate agencies. I found one with good reviews and called. A kind voice answered. "Good morning. How can we help you?" And I, my voice only trembling slightly, said, "I want to sell my condo fast. No big advertising, no letting too many people know." The woman on the other end asked a few questions. Address, size, condition. Then she said, "We can send someone out tomorrow to do an appraisal." "Perfect," I replied and hung up. I sat on the sofa with the phone in my hand, feeling my heart pound. I had just taken the first step, and there was no turning back. The next day, the agent came, a man in his 40s with a gray suit and a professional smile. He toured the apartment, took pictures, made notes, and finally told me, "Mrs. Johnson, this place could sell for around $280,000, maybe a little more if we do some minor repairs. But if you want to sell fast, like you said, we could get $250,000 in less than a month." I nodded. "Let's do it." He looked surprised. "You don't want to consult with your family first? Most people—" I cut him off. "I don't need to consult with anyone. It's my decision." He smiled, handed me the papers to sign, and a week later there was an interested buyer, a young couple who needed to move quickly for a job. They offered $270,000 cash, no financing, no complications.